Truth Talks. Please, I'm excited about the Truth Talks. They are addressing true fellowship and what it means, what true fellowship and corporate worship looks like according to the Bible.
So, it's been a long time since I've been here. Where are we? Yes. Huh? Second Corinthians. We got some additional reading. All right, Chronicles. What else we on? Just Chronicles? Kings as well. All right, so this would be kind of like a perfect time, right? We talked about Elijah. See, got the name right this time. I'm well rested from my vacation. We talked about Elijah. Can remember these names better a little bit too. I might even get a couple right as I'm reading them. So I have been listening to a lot. I'm probably still gonna butcher them, but I'm gonna try my best. Um, we're getting ready to come to the tail end of one person's life, Elijah. So Elijah is that one prophet that is coming to proclaim what is to come. All right, not just so much of what is to come for the people, but what is to come for Israel. Hey, he's one of the first ones, and not the only one, but one of the first ones to start to say, Israel, your wickedness is coming to a head. Now, when I say Israel, we understand that I'm not talking about Judah, just Israel. So what are the tribes that's left in Judah? Mm-hmm. Judah ain't by itself. It's Benjamin and Judah together. So when we think about, don't forget the tribes. It's easy as we progress through the scriptures and we start talking about nations to forget what this really was all about. Say again. Oh no, y'all want the board? Y'all need it? Yeah, a little one. If I need to draw, it'll be a real small nation. Little nations. But when you think about it, these nations that we're talking about now, if you forget the tribal aspect of what they all started out to be, crossing over from the Jordan, we had the judges. The judges led to the arrogance of the people wanting a king. Kings led to wars. Wars led to conflict. Conflict led to the building of Jerusalem because we had a great king who came in and ruled and did some things right and got all the gold where it was needed to be. And then we had another king to come behind him who was wise, led his people. I'm not trying to give you the whole back trail, but if we forget where we have come from, we'll forget that, yes, these tribes have turned into nations, and we'll start looking at the bigger picture because the bigger picture talks about wars, right? Talks about the different countries that were around Judah and Israel, and how they were starting to say, look, y'all don't seem as powerful as you used to be. Now, remember what was the countries that was around them? Y'all remember some of them? Come on, just spit them out. Who? Well, Samaria was in Israel. Samaria was the capital of Israel. We got Moab, Ammon, Edom, Babel was down there. Now, at this time, Babel was conquesting. Babel wasn't just chilling. Now, I have to, I want to clarify that Assyria is not on that board, but it's at the top, and it's coming. All right, now we see all these other things. Now, a little history about Babylon and Assyria. Why am I giving you history about Babylon and Assyria? Because it's good to know these things. Might make sense to some, might not make any sense to others, but to know it is, I always think it's a good thing. It's information. Why not share it? All right. So a little bit about Babylon and Assyria. I'm going to talk about a lot of things tonight that, like Amari said, I may be off manuscript a bit because it's fitting for where the people are, but we've been talking about the kings and the prophets for so long. I want to just point out some things that I would think, and this is why it's an open discussion. What were the people experiencing during this time of war? You get what I'm saying? Warring nations are coming in. The fight is going on. You got Judah up there. They basically saying like, well, we just get in a fight when somebody come and ask us to. You'll kind of know what I'm talking about if you read ahead a little bit, right? We see that Judah keeps getting chastised for that. Hey, why you keep jumping in fights? I keep telling you not to. We see the happenings around them, and we talk about the kings and we talk about the prophets. We talk about the bad kings and the good kings. What is the heart of the people in both of these nations now that the tribes are divided, and we have kind of like brother versus outside cousins versus uncles nephews? like families. So this is one big family feud in this land. And here's why when we see Babylon and we see Babylon and Assyria, let's see where their relations is. Anybody know what Babylon and Assyria, where they come from, progenitor? I mean, if we believe that all three of them came from the three that went out and started, you know what the progenitor of Babylon and Assyria is? Don't worry. If you don't know, that's why I looked it up, because I was curious. So let's go. Babylon and Assyria are both said to have come from, drum roll, Shem. These are now you see this chastising rod that's coming in to whoop some tail is still in the line of family. You kind of see what I'm saying here? These aren't outside fights. These are inside fights from a long lineage of people who have been tracking where their family is from. Now, Assyria's was his founder was Asherah, the son of Shem. Location originally in the region of Assyria, which is now modern day Iraq. Significance: Assyria was a powerful empire that played a significant role in the Near Eastern, known as the military prowess and cultural achievements. So that's what they were known for. They were known, and I say this because as we progress forward, we're going to see king go against king and outside force just kind of come in. And I don't want you to think they're just coming from nowhere. They were already kind of designed to do this because that's what their role was. You see that in some of the prophets' writing, talking about as Assyria was going to be the switch for Israel, but let's not let Assyria get too big of a head because I'm going to chastise them too. You see the order I'm putting here? I don't want you to think that anything that's happening to Israel is not orchestrated through time, through a plan that was way back. When we was reading the lineage of all of the people, this person came from that person begat that person, that we were like, a lot of times we stuck with the names, and I'm happy that we did that, because I think now we have a better understanding where some of these people are coming from, and it's not an outside thing that God was like, what army can I raise up? You see how these plans were? All right, Babylon, founder, Nimrod, descendant of Shem's son Cush. Babylon was a city in ancient Mesopotamia, located in what is now modern day Iraq. It's funny that these two groups that were kind of located close to each other have the same idea as you really think about it. You conquest one and I conquest the other one. Because you think, right, when we look at Assyria came in and they took over. They were constantly warring until eventually they took over Samaria. I'm telling you a lot of what's going to transpire in the story, just as if I'm not assigning it to a king yet. You'll hear these things. Assyria came in and they would just beat up all Israel, and they would get pushed out a little bit, and then they would come back in and fight some more until eventually they took the capital. So now you have a warring army sitting right there at the gate of what nation? No, Israel already got taken. I'm running y'all through a lot of the script fast because it's going to go quick. And there's going to be some things that are going to be talked about, but I'm giving you a little bit more in-depth detail for this quick, like 5-10 minutes. So what you say? Judah, right? Because if Assyria beats down the walls of Israel, the only thing left now is Judah. Well, if Judah's weak, what do you think Babylon is sitting over there saying? I mean, if Israel is weak, what do you think that Babylon is saying? Well, I'm kind of close to Judah, and they don't get along. You got enemies that way, you got enemies this way. So you see where a lot of this conflict comes, where these kings are also going to start saying, you think you might want to side with me? These are personal ambitions versus what was the godly plan. Don't go and war with that nation because I didn't tell you to. I didn't consult you to do so. We're going to see now, and the prophets are going to start applying more pressure on the kings. The execution of the unrighteous is going to come swift. Promises are going to be laid in between. Old letters from the dead are going to come out. Like if you read these two as a consecutive story, you'll see all of this transpire, and you'll understand that when we get to the end of Chronicles and we see that Judah's going into captivity, we understand that this has been a long time coming since the Babylon and Assyria being created way back with Shem. Kind of get what I'm saying? Nothing is new. All right, so let's jump into the text. So last time we left off, I believe I was in Kings, but we talked a little bit about Chronicles because we talked about Jehoshaphat and what he was getting ready to do. But if we take a look at Kings 3, Not skip. I know we didn't talk about 2. Second Kings 3. I know we didn't talk about 2. That's Elisha, right? Elijah going up to heaven, the transfer of power, that's all in there. But here I want to talk about what some of us may have read in Chronicles, Jehoshaphat lining up with another king from Israel. And the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria. Remember, that's the capital. In the 18th year of Jehoshaphat. Now, we know that Jehoshaphat, anybody who's on the Chronicle side of the house? All right, so what we got for Jehoshaphat? So this is the 18th year of Jehoshaphat. We know that Jehoshaphat ruled a lengthy time. That was like, what, 40-something years? So about 40-something years. So this is the 18th year of Jehoshaphat's 40-year reign. All right. Jehoram is taking over. Jehoshaphat is the new king. I mean, Jehoshaphat's been the king. Jehoram is the new. Jehoram is the king. Now we just heard what happened to the previous king with Elijah and the other king who died, because that's what we say. So now we see the transition of power. I didn't want to read what was happening with Elijah because we're going to close out his story here in a second. But I wanted to show you that the power is being transferred between the kings really fast in Israel. It's like almost one get in there, he's wicked, dies. I think, the time frames of these kings and the rulers in the land goes fast. Think about conspiracy, back to back, killing brothers, all types of stuff is happening. Now, a lot of that also happens on the other side, but it's told from Israel side of the story. Now, y'all remember when I said, like, as we read Kings and Chronicles, it's almost as two people are telling the story about 2 different sides, but they're kind of like just talking about each other in passing. So this is the kings of Israel's side of that talking and passing about what's happening with the north, them, and the warring armies around them. Now, y'all remember at the beginning of this chapter, it said, at the beginning of the Kings, the first king, 2 Kings 1, it talked about Moab revolting against Israel, the death of Ahab, and then we got to the sun falling through the roof. But we also know that if you go into Chronicles, it talk about how the warring started between Edom and the nations going up against Judah. Now, I probably would want to get the map because we know that Edom was coming up from the bottom, Ammon was coming up from the side. We had just wars all around. So we see Jehoram, son of Ahab, reign over Israel in Samaria in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat. An 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and he reigned 12 years. So in the 18th year, this king took over and he reigned 12 years. So that pushes him a little bit further down the Jehoshaphat line. So if you read in Chronicles, you hear what he did in the war time frame, but then that's kind of, it says after that, Jehoshaphat dies, right? And he was buried. All right. And this king right here that we're talking about did evil. Solidified. Like, I don't have to really compound and say what he did on the evil, but we know that he did evil, and the Bible's going to tell us anyway, just because they want to know. He did evil, but not like his father and mother. So what did this mean? Who was his father? Ahab and Jezebel. So he did evil, but not like them. What does that mean? But what did he do that was less evil than his mom and dad? Because that would seem like. So why was he? Now here's the thing. I pose questions because I like to think. All right, these aren't questions to if you. I'm not trying to take you away from your biblical thinking, but just a thought, and I share it with you. If he's taking down the poles and making right in the town, almost similar to what Jehoshaphat was doing, why was he considered evil? Especially if he did less evil than his mom and dad. He's still evil. I wanted to pull it out because you get a lot of moral people. I do good. I do really good. I'm a good person. I went and I did some things, but I also want to say, we've been talking a lot and around the house about heart posture. The Bible really points out a lot of heart posture. Why did he take those things down? Should be the question that we ask, because we know that he didn't do it with the intent to bring people back to worship of Yahweh. He didn't take it down because, hey, if I take this down, this will make it better for all of the people of Israel. He just took it down for what reason? Because he didn't want it. Partial obedience, half-hearted. following program loosely. But this is where, and he did evil in the eyes. He took down his father and mother, for he removed the statues of Baal, and he, which his father had made. Now check this out. I sometimes like to think too that maybe he took it down because after what happened with Elijah, those was the temples that he noted. I mean, hey, I don't want to send anybody to Baal worship because Elijah's killing people, but the other ones might still be good because he didn't kill anybody for that. Again, these are just thoughts I have as I read the scripture, so I can try to gauge what these people are doing because I wasn't there. So the only thing I can do is ponder and wonder, what were your reason? Not to say, man, I'm trying to figure it out on, like, what could have been a reason that you would only take half of them down after seeing what just happened? You're working with Jehoshaphat. It's so many questions that make me just think about the scriptures in depth because, I mean, it's a lot going on just in this one sentence. He's with Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat is righteous. He's also taken down the Baal worship temples, but yet he still carries on the path of unrighteousness because God deemed him evil, right?
Other item.
Not only it's we got Nebet. Well, he clung to the son of Nebet who made Israel sin. This was another person. Again, attaching himself to bad people giving bad advice. But what I'm getting at is this person, this king, as we see, had opportunities to do the right thing, right? New regime, possible change in idolatry worship in here, cleaning up Israel. Yet we have another king whose choice was just, like you said, what'd you say? Partial obedience, fully committed. So we see that some of the evil that they did wasn't just so much of keeping idols in town. It was being, because what does the command say? No other God, right? Wholeheartedly. Jesus came and simplified it. Y'all, give your heart to God. I'm paraphrasing here. But when we see this, we see that he wasn't a wholehearted worshiper. So he falls him back into the evil because we serve a jealous God. What you got, Dennis?
If there had been a good king in Israel, would he have sent his people to Jerusalem to worship?
I like that question. So when we're dealing with an if, right? We're dealing in the atmosphere that everything is on par for what is supposed to be done, right? So when we ask if there was a good king in Israel, would he send his people back to Jerusalem? The answer would be yes, because the only reason that we have bad kings that don't send their people to Jerusalem is because we had a bad king that created a system that made Israel sin, not want to go and do that. So we have a king that removes all of those things and put orders and decree that this is where you will be for worship. Israel goes back into righteousness. But we see they never did that. That's why we have such a line of bad kings, or kings who were bad and then eventually repented, but it was too late for Israel. Manasseh was one of them kings. He was horrible. He said, I'm going to double down on everything that everybody had. But yet he repented. And when he repented, we see that he's one that repented, but it never changed the status from evil because he started out evil. If you notice, they never really go back and say that this person was evil and then he was good. They just say, hey, he turned back. I don't know. We don't know what that is. A lot of theologians and scholars argue those things back and forth. We can only talk about the final outcome and the possibility of what led them to that final outcome, and listen to the scripture. If it say he turned, he turned. You kind of get what I'm saying? Not to add or put additions to. All right. So now we got a king who clings to the old ways. Now we have a king over in Moab. Now Moab was a sheep. This king was a sheep breeder, Nisha, was a king over Moab and was a sheep breeder, and he paid the king of Israel 100,000 lambs. Now that is a lot, and wool of 100,000 rams. He is shearing them sheep. That is a lot. And it came to be when Ahab died, the king of Moab revolted against Israel. Now where's Moab on this map? So Moab said, we ain't paying you no more. Whatever we was giving you, that tax is done. So that creates an internal, like you already got an internal state where people are refusing to pay tribute. Because remember, this is what the tribal thing still kind of mattered. It's a sheep herder. Like he was paying in sheep. These are things the tribes did in the desert to survive. That was tribal laws. We just see it now operating under kingship. And when it operated under kingship, well, they probably was giving all them sheep to all those people. If you notice, what's the number? What is 100,000 divided in by 10? So each tribe was getting their share. So as you see, even though we had a king here, king is for K, and a king here, you still had these people paying tribute to the tribes because they understood something that the tribes didn't understand. It's a lot of y'all versus one of us. They never, like, if the tribe would have, I'm putting a lot of ifs out here. All right, because I like when we can discuss the scriptures, and I'm not taking it anyone out here is off on what I'm saying. We all track it, we follow. I don't want to lose nobody. We see that this was the first break. Even though we talked about the rebellion in the early chapters of King, and we're going to get later on to the rebellion internally that we talk about in Chronicles, but we see this as, anybody else see this as a break? When we see the scriptures, we see somebody who is paying the tribes. They broke away. And I'm not paying no more. Now remember, this was decreed. Israel was supposed to go in and put everybody around there under the ban. We see that this ban now is broken not by God, by the people's sin. Because they didn't mention, and I'm not saying this, but they didn't mention they was going to stop paying them. Or tribute. Most of the time when we talk about the old tribes working as tribute, one tribe got beat down pretty bad in the war, and then they said, well, to not beat us anymore, we'll just give you our sheep. We'll give you our herds. And I'm telling you, like, if you look over, these things that was happening in the Middle East was happening in other places. They would literally, sheep, cows, whatever it was, that was the product. And normally the reason why is you lost. So now you have to fuel the war. And they said, we're not going to fuel your war anymore. So now we're going to revolt. It's a weakness.
Independent on their own.
Not just Ahab. 2 kings died in a course of Ahab. You got Ahab died, and Ahab's other son, the other king that took over that fell through the thing, he died, right? And now we have a whole new ruler. This is still Jehoshaphat's one run. He's doing pretty good. If you think of the line of, like, and this is when I look at the kings, and I sometimes I'm kind of like, wow, that's kind of crazy. You look at one king, and they like rule for years, and then their son come and do something crazy, and he might have a short rule. But you look at Egypt, Israel, they was trading kings like every Thursday. Who's the new king? What does that do for the people? Remember what I said? I want to think about the people, because the people are now engaged in the middle of conflict. No stability. No faith. Like, they're already in a state of confusion about who they serve.
But in essence, as you were saying, Moab want to be independent of that and start. You say we're going to do to you basically what you did to them.
Oh, we not paying y'all no more, and we can revolt. Because the revolt is going to naturally come when someone says, I'm no longer going to pay you. Like, I'm not going to pay you. All right, well, here comes a revolt. We're coming to get whatever it is. Or vice versa. We know we got to pay you. We better hit you first. Deprive you of all the stuff you need for your battle arraignment. No food, no stuff to cover up with, nothing to protect yourselves. And we're going to fight you. Even if we lose, we're not going to pay you and lose. We're just not going to pay you and just fight you. Either way, we're going to lose. You kind of get what I'm saying? They again, you look across history, some of the records show very, very little. And a lot of it comes from historians, archaeology, wherever you get, but it's very little. And it talks about these things in like very snippets. So a lot of this whole fighting, you have to base it off what they call with military tactics, how things worked in those times. I don't want to cheat you out of this, because literally these are what the kings would have went through during this time of war. Literally, God is chastising Israel, but we see where the chastising rods are coming from. We see how that chastising is being orchestrated. It's not just like, well, you know what? I have a plan and it's just going to miraculously happen. No, we see it's happening through time. The same way we see the coming of Christ, because remember, initially I said that's what I'm going to show you, right? The same way we see the coming of Christ through time, we can also see the wars coming. You can see all of it because God laid it all out for you via the scriptures. He didn't hold back on what was written in here. It was just when we see the prophets coming to tell everybody about it, we get the full cup of it. The prophets was telling people that these things were happening while they were happening. So it was kind of like, I'm telling you it's going to happen, and then it happens. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You didn't give me no fair warning. I also think that's the beauty of the gospel. we get it told. So not told. Questions so far?
About the death of one could affect the whole nation. Ahab had political domination over Israel. And so they used his death to get out from under that, which means that's why they was given the 100,000 cattle when Ahab was alive. They didn't want to do that.
Mhm.
And his death proved that they didn't want to do it because they capitalized on it after he died. And only after he died, because had he been still alive, they'd been still paying.
It's interesting that you said that. That's the unparalleled bridge, I think, but I'll bring that to giving. Before I was taught and understood that tithing was never for the church, right? People lined up to lay money at the feet or come down to the altar. God told me to tell 500 people to give such and such. And people would do that unsought. People are still doing that. But then once they were taught that tithing was never for the church, then for them to pull back like immediately and a lot, Brother Walker, they weren't doing it any longer. It seems to me that before they were only doing it because they thought they had to. They weren't doing it, and then Paul talks about that giving not out of compulsion. I don't know if it's similar to what you're saying. They were doing this. They didn't want to do it when Ahab was alive.
Yeah,
But it just showed once the restraint was lifted, they showed their true nature.
and that's what we're seeing. Remember, what's the restraint? What was stopping all these people from warring around them anyway? Israel was but a piece of grass plucked, favored, basically. You know, I just put you in my hand. So what's stopping these nations from warring around them in the beginning? It was the worship of Yahweh. God literally stopped all of these. If you notice, and I said, right, they didn't go to Judah. They went to Israel. The compulsionary pay that they stopped paying covers 10 tribes when you break down the math, right? I'm not trying to make like something special of it. I'm showing you the war. Like the war that most people, when they read the Bible, just glaze over how it started. Like they think that these people just started fighting it. No, it literally, I'm not paying you no more. The king died. It was a buildup. And think about it. How long you think Moab has been paying Israel? How long? Now I'm gonna ask you a better question. How long has Moab been afraid of Yahweh? So and I say that to say this. When we look at scriptures, the importance of understanding this whole nation didn't attack, not because they felt like Israel was mighty. They didn't attack because they were afraid of God. That was it. Like, so you see, soon as they felt like it was no God in Israel, remember that last question when Elijah was, hey, y'all out here Baal worshiping, we already see the kings is wicked. Moab was like, oh, Yahweh ain't there no more. Because look at what he attacked. Look at where Moab starts to attack. We already know he's going up to Israel, right? King of Moab said, I ain't paying no more sheep. And it all came to be when Ahab died, that the king of Moab revolted against the king of Israel. And the king Joram went out of Samaria. Now remember, Samaria is the new capital for Israel. So this war, capitals usually represent where the army has to push to for total victory. Say if I was trying to take over New York. What's center city of New York? What is it? What's that place called? What is it? Yeah, Times Square. Isn't that like the center city where everybody go? All right. I ain't want to put it like this. New York has a center. Basically it spreads out like a star going all the way into every other borough, and everything goes center. A guy was teaching me one day, all you gotta do is know where the center of New York is, and once you pass over, you're going uptown, downtown. Long story short is, Times Square is the center. I know I wasn't crazy. So everything kind of bleeds into this area. So if you think about it, as an army would push, they would push into the capital. Well, they got Judah on their back. They ain't doing that. They would have to go in up to Israel. And do you think Israel capital was here or somewhere in here? It was some distance. So they had to push up and in, and they was willing to do it. They said, we ain't paying you no more. But Jehoram had another plan. He said, if I don't have God, let me go and do as I seen other people in my family do. Jehoshaphat believes in God. If I ask Jehoshaphat to join me, I know one thing, and I guess he didn't remember the story of Ahab because nobody told him how Ahab died, but he must in his mind say, I know if Jehoshaphat go out with me, I can get victory. I've seen it before, right? And what do y'all think Jehoshaphat said when he came to ask? Huh? Jehoshaphat was like, and this is the thing that always gets me about Jehoshaphat. He always kind of says yes and then asks for a prophet. He's like, yeah, I'll go to war with you, but let's see what the prophet has to say about victory. Why didn't you ask the prophet? Should you even go to war with him?
Yeah, they advised the kings of military warfare. We talked on that Wednesday.
Right.
Here. That was one of the duties of the prophet to give the king advice about wars, when they should go, how many men they should take. So that's what that was one of the prophet's duties.
Right. So my
Question, I pose this, why didn't Jehoshaphat ask about even going to war? He's always asking after he's already hitched his wagon to this person. Like, yeah, sure. But let's ask the prophet and see what they're going to say the outcome is going to be. We already said yes.
no, what you
Like praying about something you already know you're going to do.
now, if you've already said yes,
Right? Now, Eric, say it one more time.
If the prophet forbids you to do that, the kings obeyed that.
They
The
obeyed.
good kings obeyed it.
they obeyed it.
But we're talking about a prophet that didn't ask the question first. I mean, the king didn't ask the question first. He wouldn't have made, listen, if the king would have asked, hey, I know you're like getting ready to go through something, but you got to give me a few minutes. I need to go ask Elisha, can we even go to war? I need to ask him first. Can I go to war with you? It reminds me of when David talks about consulting God for everything. Counsel, a wise counselor. Should I go? That was always David's thing. Should I go up against them? No, okay. Are you going to put them in my hand? He never asked. He just said, yeah, sure, I got you. Every time. I love Jehoshaphat because he must have seen every chance again, these are just things I get when I read the scriptures. Pedisms. Yeah, when I see Jehoshaphat, I really think that his heart may have been in the right place because these are the 10 tribes. This is Israel. I can't let Israel fall. These are my brother. Like they were always asking, aren't you my brother? Aren't we somehow kin? Like they would always put him in that position. And if you think about it, man, family tends to, they're the ones that can get you in that position the easiest. Hey, you think you can give me a lift to go over here and do this? Hold on, man. Like it's hard to say no. You kind of get what I'm saying? So I always think about these predicaments. I know they're not written in here, but I just think, and I share my thoughts. All right. And it came when Ahab, we talked about Ahab's death. All right, we had 3:7. And he went and sent for Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, saying, the king of Moab has revolted against me. Do you go with me to fight against Moab? And he said, what do you say? Like, you see how fast that decision, I mean, again, we know the scriptures have a time frame. I'm not saying like, hey, he said it, and like, as soon as he sent it back, it was like a text or a tweet, like, yeah, I got you. No, it wasn't that fast. It probably was by bird or some type of messenger carrier, but the fact is, it didn't say, let me consult the prophet. It just said, yeah, I'll go up. I got you. In modern day terms, he asked something and he answered in my thinking, without thinking. Sounds like that was a pretty quick answer. Scriptures wrote it like it was fast. I'm not going to say the length of time for travel of the message. But we know that his response in his heart was, I'm going to go with you. Even though we know the state of Israel. I'm not talking about the kings, the state of Israel. So Jehoshaphat has just agreed to do what? Now, what worship, what's left here? Baal temples are gone, but we got the Asherahs, we got all the other gods. So what did Jehoshaphat just say he's going to go and defend? So,
Good intentions.
But in his answer, when you finish reading his answer, his reasoning is, I will go up, I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses.
In other words, he felt that family bond.
that family bond caught him without thinking. Now, I have a lot of family, and I'm from Philadelphia, and that city up there is different. It's religious wise, it's a melting pot. I have family that follows all other cultures and religions. No pressure towards it. But if they ask me to go up, I'm gonna have to pass. I'm gonna have to go ahead and look for my Elisha in this situation. I'm gonna have to double check, huh?
Yeah.
But do you see how I'm not trying to take away from the scripture, but I'm trying to show you how easy it can happen today. Like it's how comfortable people can be in any situation today. Like when I asked you what was the state of the people, we knew that they were starving. We knew they didn't have anything, but we knew that they also wasn't trying to make their situation better. It tells you in the scriptures that Israel people sinned. Yes, the kings led them to sin, but Israel also got their hands slapped the people for sinning. Like, go ahead.
That's one of the things that the Jehoshaphat and look at the reason why you're in this predicament is because of your sin. And if it's because of your sin, God has got you in this predicament. Not Jeremiah not been involved, those God is involved.
And he also proclaimed something. Them wasn't his people. They broke off from you. I'm not trying to pit it against. I want you to understand some of the hypocrisy that get littered in the conversation of kings who should, when we know what they should know better by the decrees that they were taught. Now, these things supposed to be hey, don't serve other gods. Well, serving other gods is giving your people to it, unless God told you, go out and fight with that army to take this army. We've seen some of that in the past. However, this wasn't commanded. A lot of times when the wars was coming for Judah or Israel, they consulted God, and God said, this is what's going to happen in this war. We see that this war wasn't commanded. He was a tag along. He said, I'm going to roll. Now, by him saying he was going to roll, which means now he's in the fight. And if he's in the fight, guess who else is coming to fight? But first was Moab. Now, the king of Moab revolted against you. He told him, go up and fight with me. And he said, I go up as I am, you are, and my people, your people. My horses, your horses. Now, when you're in the tribe of Judah, I'm going to say another thing is that I like to point out the things that are said that when you think about the previous things, who does those horses and people belong to? So we see another thing that Jehoshaphat could have possibly erred in a way of a king, not consulting what to do with God's people. We seen what happened when David kind of was like, yeah, I'm just going to go out here and do what I want with God's people. He ended up with an angel in the sky and a sword facing him saying, all you got to do, David, is like, all you got to do is say, and the whole city is gone. Y'all remember that? Okay. So we see what happens when kings make moves without consulting because they're not their people. Nobody owns anybody. So if you have these people under you by kingship, it's only because God allows it. He didn't consult. Well, we already know that Israel ain't consulting nobody. They're going to war with whoever they feel like fighting. They got to defend themselves now because they're no longer getting any tributes. And the people around them are ready to go. Now, this is the thing. I drew this from the map that I had in my book. And it was during a time when Israel and Judah was a kingdom. So it had Edom down here, right? Right here? I mean, I ain't had that big a map, so I'm kind of generalizing. Eric gonna have me go ahead and put two boards together. But what I'm trying to say is Edom was down here. And then we listen to the scriptures, right? They revolt and said, yeah, go up. And he said, which way do we go up? And he said, by the way of the wilderness of Edom. Wait a minute. You up here, they're attacking here. So you telling me we got to go up this way? Like go up and like, I don't get it. Cause Moab would have been maybe a little bit more up, but they was going up. So in other words, it's still kind of strange. Maybe they mustered outside. They came together, grouped up and then went up. But that's how the map had it. So, which means that either they had to come down and then go up in Moab. Well, we don't know, but we know that they went through Edom. And that probably wasn't a good idea either. And this king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and they went to the king of Edom. Oh, here's the third party. And they went a round journey of 7 days, and there was no water for the army. So, by the way, the scripture's saying that they did take the long way. Am I mistaken? All right. So if Edom was down here, that means that the plan had to go possibly like this. I wasn't there in the planning room, but if we look at what the scripture's saying, this is kind of what it's pointing out. They did this, and they had nothing, no food or water. A 7-day march. They go down here with their whole army to attack this guy because they had to get permission to go through Edom to attack Moab, which would have probably been a little bit more up that way, but they had to go down and around. It's kind of counterproductive. So you even see that the plan is kind of shaky. Let's see what God do for him, because Jehoshaphat was there. That is the thing that right now, if I was the king of Israel, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I'm so glad Jehoshaphat in here. We ain't got no food, no water. We don't walk around here 7 days. I'm thirsty, but I know it's gonna be all right because Jehoshaphat there. Maybe. They went around Edom, and there was no water for the army nor cattle to follow them. Yeah, because y'all didn't get paid. And the king of Israel said, what has the Lord called these 3 kings to give them into the hands of Moab? So Edom was like, shoot, if y'all going, I want to join in too. It's funny how Edom just tagged along, or is we still talking about the 2 kings plus one of the other kings from somewhere else? Now, Edom jumped in there real quick, right? Now, why do you think Edom would have sided with those 2? What do you think could have been the reason?
Together, Edom is saying, okay, I'll be better off with them
Then against them.
than against. With Moab trying to be against.
Now,
Later on in text, we're going to see that these alliances that made, they don't last. They're going to just start saying, look, we're going to fight everybody. We'll fight you. And then eventually the 2 big dogs came in and was like, y'all ain't fight nobody. It's all fine. The land just got swept. It's like locusts. All right. Running out of time here, so pick up a little bit. So they called, he asked with these 3 men, and Jehoshaphat, well, here's Jehoshaphat. He finally said something. And Jehoshaphat said, is there no prophet of the Lord here? Wait. I go up. If you switch these 2 sentences around, we might have a different story, but we have an after the fact, can I ask this question? Because he already sees that I'm out of food. I didn't think about Edom, Moab revolting against you and not giving you anything. So now I'm marching my army, your army eating my food. Now you see why this question, can Jehoshaphat, can you go up? Because I would say, if these people are still paying tribute because they can go through it, they're at least paying this tribe how many cattle and horses? I mean, the Moab is paying that. You think they're going to have a different tax all around? Possibly. Could be, by the way. But I'm going to say, they paying Judah something. To allow them to come through with an army, they paying them something. Because Judah can march through their town. This was not normal. Now, to explain how it's not normal, you have to go look at a whole different set in this world. Motorcycle groups. Motorcycle groups they kind of do some of the things when it comes to marching through. I've learned this by watching a lot of motorcycle shows, and I've learned this by growing up in an area where they had motorcycle gangs. It's crazy, but they were there. And you learn that if you march through another person's country as a motorcycle gang, or you ride through, and I know I'm using something kind of different, but if you ride through, you had to take off your colors, right? This was still kind of common in those things. You couldn't just march through somebody's town to start a war, because marching through here to attack Moab meant what about Edom? That Edom let these 2 armies do it, which automatically will make these 2 armies enemies. And I don't like him anyway, because I'm not just painting a picture for you what's going on out there in Israel and streets over there. All right. So he finally asked for a prophet. Is there a prophet to inquire the Lord through him? One of the servants of Israel. And in answer, he said, Elijah of Shaphat is here, who poured out water on the hands of Elijah. We'll stop right there. Well, actually, we're not. We can keep going. I got a little bit more time. We're going to pause right here for the kings, because it'll be hard tell you about the kings and not tell you about Elijah and why he's the one. They're like, hey, is it a prophet here? Yeah, Elijah, you notice the tone is a little different when it comes to Elijah. I think a lot of people's tone was different when it comes to Elijah. Kids, don't talk about his hair missing, but let's get on to Elijah. So we go to Kings. We already talked about Gladys. Oh, Kings 2. In Kings 2, we're going to see a transfer of spirit, a requested double portion. We're going to see we're taken up in the sky. It's a lot of things here that could be talked about for long periods of time, and I really want to open it up, but I don't, because I don't want to shortchange you on anything. You know, but let's see where it takes us. I like being led by the Holy Spirit. Chapter 2. 2 Kings chapter 2. Now I know it's hard to follow the order, and I know and the reason there is a reason about me not saying, hey, follow this, follow that, read them both, listen to them both, however you decide to digest them both. Because I want you to be able to pull the story out when we're talking about it. As if even if I go to Chronicles, you'll kind of know where we are, because you're following the Kings, not so much the written story. You're still following the written story, but you're following the King's path, or you're following the prophet's path. And it just makes it easier to break down these two books. And I know we've been talking about this for months and months, but I feel like if we can find the lines or the strings to pull, we'll get to these books.
We just read Kings 3.
Okay, now we're going to.
2.
That is two.
Yeah, you want to go.
Chapter 2.
Well, the reason, and my reason behind doing this, because
That's it. I don't want to confuse anybody. The reason why I brought up Kings 3 as where we were going, it was because Kings 3 was to identify the transition of the kings, because we're going to go talk about that. But as we go back to 2, we're going to be talking about Elisha kind of heavy going forward, because he's going to pretty much be dealing with the kings of both Israel and Judah at some point. So I wanted to finish up Elijah, work into what the kings were happening as Elijah was getting ready to transition, to show you why they're searching for Elisha, not Elijah. Now I know we'd have went in the order. I know it was a lot. I know if we would have went in the order of the scriptures, we would have got there. But this part about Jehoshaphat and the king probably would have seemed a little off if you read Chronicles. And you're like, oh, so that's what was going on between Jehoshaphat and the king of Israel, and why the prophet was acting. And then you'll see later on why the prophet Elijah and Elisha start to kind of to warn Judah before we start looking at other prophets who was like, hey, we're over here. I'm not saying they couldn't, but it's more like, hey, Isaiah started speaking, Amos will start. You'll see the other prophets kind of speaking out to the destruction of either Israel or Judah. So that helps us. If we can learn the order of the kings, it'll help us understand the order of the prophets, the ones they call the 12 minor prophets. We'll see their prophecies wasn't minor at all. They were very major, because they were speaking to the complete destruction of Israel, Judah, and them going into captivity. So if you kind of combine, I know it's a lot, but if you can kind of combine all of this together, you'll start to see how God was working with them to move them to the places where they need to be, so that everything could benefit us in Christ's coming. So, all right. Give a 5-minute intro to Elijah. Well, we'll see how far we get with him getting ready to be taken up. And it came to be, when the Lord was to take up Elijah to the heavens by whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elijah to Gilgal. I love this because a lot of people would make it seem, if you start at the beginning and you pay attention, or you're focusing on what was said in the beginning, this was the Lord's plan with Elijah from the beginning, to take him up in a whirlwind. This wasn't a mystery. It was the plan from the beginning, that's how he would be taken up. Now, we get a lot of, try not to go too much into it, but we get a lot of people to debate that Elijah is taken up, makes him one of the witnesses. We see that he does witness on the Mount of Transfiguration. It's a lot to talk about that, which is another time. So if you have those type of questions, hold them for when we get that type of lessons. Right now, we're just talking about the transition of those two. Kind of make sense? I just didn't want us to start talking about it and then we railroad because I got it. I got the notes if y'all want to talk about that, but we ain't gonna get back to Kings for about 3 or 4 more Bible studies. All right, so I'm just trying to keep it here because we have been resting in this portion for a while. And I'm not tired of it. It's just I want to make sure we're doing it crisp and clear, not interrupting the stories that are being told. All right. And Elijah said to Elisha, please remain here, for the Lord has sent me to Bethel. And Elijah said, as the Lord lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave. All right, so we already see that the servant understands. And when we're talking about servant here, we're talking about Elijah, the prophet, getting ready to pass on to his servant, Elisha. And we see that Elijah's kind of like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. Because what we just read is Elijah is aware that the Lord is coming to take. Elisha is aware that the Lord is coming to take Elijah. We just read that. So this wouldn't have been something that would have been a mystery to him. It would have been a more mystery of seeing it. And I don't even think it was a mystery when he saw it. He was like, it happened. You know, he went back and continued to do his duty. So as we see this, we start to see the unfold of the transition between the two, but we also understand it. Elijah's aware of the transition. He's so aware that people are going to be coming up to him and saying, hey, the Lord is going to take your master today. And he's like, yo, just chill. Give me a couple more minutes. All right. So Elijah's still also going out and doing things for Israel. He's still going to the towns. He's still going to tell the people. He's still doing warnings. He was also probably still doing miracles, and he was also writing a letter, which we'll see that finally gets to one of the kings later on in Chronicles. So I say that because I don't want you to feel like when we start talking about the Chronicles and it mentions Elijah, I want to let you know this is a post-mortem letter that goes to the king. Imagine that the letter he wrote here is going to go to a king day after his death. That king is going to read and it's going to impact him. Again, prophecy doesn't have to have a physical body. The words got to him. He got what was supposed to be told. So that's pretty good. All right. Elijah was like, leave me alone. He followed him down to Bethel. And the son of the prophets who were in Bethel came out to Elijah and said to him, do you know that the Lord is taking away your master from your head? Taking away my master from my head. Now, we know that a lot of terms when they talk about severing the head from something, it's going to get weaker. Like it's not going to be as good. He's taking you and your servants are going to go. But we see that Elijah, like, he hears this. He hears that it's a separation. So as we hear that the separation, right? Elijah, again, some tediousness. Elijah knows that he's leaving. He knows that, hey, this guy is the power. Like this guy, not saying that he's the power, but he works for the Lord. Like I'm following him city to city, seeing all the things that he's doing. But I also know that they're going to take him away. And the prophets are coming out saying, hey, they're going to kind of take the head of you away. Like, man, oh, wait a minute. So this could push Elisha to say, well, there you go. You think I can get double what you got? Again, just thoughts, not in an arrogant way, but just knowing that they're taking you right now. The one who has slaughtered multiple armies, dropped fire from the sky. Like they're getting ready. The Lord is getting ready to take you away, which is going to kind of make it even a little bit more crazier because now Elijah is not here. I'm going to need double what you got because I'm going to have to do, I'm going to be brought on you more because now these kings are kind of in an uproar. When you had Israel, you just had Ahab. I got kings popping off left and right. Again, this is just the PDism, how I see the scripture sometimes. I know I would have said, hey, Elisha, can I get that? Possible triple. And he made an axe float. All right. And when they told him this, I asked him, and he said, I also know, be silent. So Elijah was not aware of what was happening today. The reminders were coming. I posed this question: why did the prophets keep reminding him? Why was this something that everywhere Elijah went, they told Elijah this news? Wow, and I'm wrapping up. Y'all can take these questions with you. Why was Elijah so eager to continue to go with it? Like, why was he like, no, I'm not leaving your side? Could it been as that he saw all the things that Isaiah did? And I always tell my wife, I hear people say that they seen a lot of awesome and amazing things in the Lord, and I don't knock any of it. I don't. But I'm just the type person that right now, if I saw something crazy from the heavens, y'all probably have to pry me from that spot. Like that would be y'all be like, where are you going to stand in that spot? So I can understand that Elijah looks at Elisha as that spot. Right. And I'd rather be close to the spot. Right. Elijah understood that Elijah was the place to be. You get how that works, that it's not not a specific place to be. He understood that Elijah was the place to be. Wherever he goes, the Lord has already told him that he's coming to get him. So I want to be where he at when this happens. So think about some of those questions. Come up with some of your own. I would love to hear your questions. Don't hold back. No, I used to always say, I don't think any question is a dumb question unless you keep it to yourself. It might sound crazy. It might be a little different for the audience to hear, but please bring questions. Anything else for me? I either did a really bad job or a really good job. I don't know yet. I figure